Chapter 14 of The Trail of the Lonesome Pine. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mike Vendetti, MikeVendetti.com. The Trail of the Lonesome Pine by John Fox, Jr. Chapter 14. But June did not go home. Hale anticipated that resolution of hers and forestalled it by being on hand for breakfast and taking June over to the porch of his little office. There he tried to explain to her that they were trying to build a town, and must have law and order, that they must have no personal feeling for or against anybody, and must treat everybody exactly alike. No other course was fair. And though June could not quite understand, she trusted him, and she said she would keep on at school until her father came for her. "Do you think he will come, June?" The little girl hesitated. "I'm afeared he will," she said, and Hale smiled. "Well, I'll try to persuade him to let you stay if he does come." June was quite right. She had seen the matter the night before just as it was, for just at that hour young Dave, sobered but still on the verge of tears from anger and humiliation, was telling the story of the day in her father's cabin. The old man's brows drew together and his eyes grew fierce and sullen, both at the insult to a Tolliver and at the thought of a certain moonshine still up a ravine not far away, and the indirect danger to it in any finicky growth of law and order. Still, he had a keen sense of justice, and he knew that Dave had not told all the story, and from him, Dave, to his wonder, got scant comfort. For another reason as well. With the deal pending for the sale of his lands, the shrewd old man would not risk giving offense to Hale, not until that matter was settled, anyway, and so June was safer from interference just then than she knew. But Dave carried the story far and wide, and it spread as the story can only in the hills, so that the two people most talked about among the Tollivers, and through Loretta among the Fallons as well, were June and Hale, and at the Gap similar talk would come. Already Hale's name was on every tongue in the town, and there, because of his recent purchase of townsite land, he was already, aside from his personal influence, a man of mysterious power. Meanwhile, the persistent shadow of the coming boom had stolen over the hills, and the work of the guard had grown rapidly. Every Saturday there had been local lawlessness to deal with. The spirit of personal liberty that characterized the spot was traditional. Here, for half a century, the people of Wise County and of Lee, whose border was but a few miles down the river, came to get their wool carted, their grist ground, and farming utensils mended. Here, too, elections were held viva voce. Under the beeches at the foot of the wooded spur now known as Imboden Hill, here were the muster days of war time. Here on Saturdays the people had come together during half a century for sport and horse trading and to talk politics. Here they drank applejack and hard cider, chafed and quarreled and fought fist and skull. Here the bullies of the two counties would come together to decide who was the best man. Here was naturally engendered the hostility between the hill dwellers of Wise and the valley people of Lee, and here was fought a famous battle between a famous bully of Wise and a famous bully of Lee. On election days the country people would bring in ginger cakes made of corn molasses, bread homemade of burr flour, and moonshine and applejack, which the candidates would buy and distribute through the crowd. And always during the afternoon there were men who would try to prove themselves the best Democrats in the state of Virginia by resort to tooth, fist, and eye-gouging thumb. Then to these elections sometimes would come the Kentuckians from over the border to stir up the hostility between state and state, which makes that border bristle with enmity to this day. For half a century, then, all wild oats from elsewhere usually sprouted at the Gap, and thus the Gap had been the shrine of personal freedom, the place where any one individual had the right to do his pleasure with bottle and cards and politics, and any other the right to prove him wrong if he were strong enough. Very soon, as the Honorable Sam Budd predicted, they had the hostility of Lee concentrated on them as siding with the county of Wise, and they would gain in addition now the general hostility of the Kentuckians, because as a crowd of meddlesome foreigners They would be siding with the Virginians in the general enmity already alive. Moreover, now that the feud threatened activity over in Kentucky, more trouble must come, too, from that source, as the talk that came through the Gap after young Dave Tolliver's arrest plainly indicated. Town ordinances had been passed. The wild centaurs were no longer allowed to ride up and down the plank walks of Saturdays with their reins in their teeth and firing a pistol into the ground with either hand. They could punctuate the hotel sign no more. They could not ride at a fast gallop through the streets of the town and lost spirit of American liberty. They could not even yell. But the lawlessness of the town itself and its close environment was naturally the first objective point, and the first problem involved was moonshine and its faithful ally, the blind tiger. The tiger is a little shanty with an ever open mouth, a hole in the door like a post office window. You place your money on the sill, and at the ring of a coin a mysterious arm emerges from the hole, sweeps the money away, and leaves a bottle of white whiskey. Thus you see nobody's face. The owner of the beast is safe, and so are you, which you might not be if you saw and told. In every little hollow about the Gap a tiger had his lair, and these were all bearded at once by a petition to the county judge for high licensed saloons, which was granted. This measure drove the tigers out of business and concentrated moonshine in the heart of the town, where its devotees were under easy guard. One tiger only, indeed, was left, run by a round-shouldered, crouching creature whom Bob Berkley, now at Hale's solicitation a policeman and known as the Infant of the Guard, dubbed Caliban. His shanty stood midway in the Gap, high from the road, set against a dark clump of pines and roared at by the river beneath. Everybody knew he sold whiskey, but he was too shrewd to be caught until late one afternoon, 2 days after young Dave's arrest. Hale, coming through the Gap into town, glimpsed a sulking figure with a hand barrel as it slipped from the dark pines into Caliban's cabin, pulled in his horse, dismounted, and deliberated. If he went on down the road now, they would see him and suspect. Moreover, the patrons of the Tiger would not appear until after dark, and he wanted a prisoner or two. So Hale led his horse up into the bushes and came back to a covert by the roadside to watch and wait. As he sat there, a merry whistle sounded down the road, and Hale smiled. Soon the Infant of the Guard came along, his hands in his pockets, his cap on the back of his head, his pistol bumping his hip in manly fashion, and making the ravines echo with his pursed lips. He stopped in front of Hale, looked toward the river, drew his revolver, and aimed it at a floating piece of wood. The revolver cracked, the piece of wood skidded on the surface of the water, and there was no splash. "That was a pretty good shot," said Hale in a low voice. The boy whirled and saw him. "Well, what are you—" "Easy, easy," cautioned Hale. "Listen, I've just seen a moonshiner go into Caliban's cabin." The boy's eager eyes sparkled. "Let's go after him." "No, you go on back. If you don't, they'll be suspicious. Get another man." Hale almost laughed at the disappointment in the lad's face at his first words, and the joy that came after it, "and climb high above the shanty and come back here to me. Then after dark we'll dash in and cinch Caliban and his customers." "Yes, sir," said the lad. "Shall I whistle going back?" Hale nodded approval. Just the same, and off Bob went, whistling like a calliope and not even turning his head to look at the cabin. In half an hour Hale thought he heard something crashing through the bushes high on the mountainside, and a little while afterward the boy crawled through the bushes to him alone. His cap was gone, there was a bloody scratch across his face, and he was streaming with perspiration. "You'll have to excuse me, sir," he panted. "I didn't see anybody but one of my brothers, and if I had told him he wouldn't have let me come, and I hurried back for fear something would happen." "Well, suppose I don't let you go?" "Excuse me, sir, but I don't see how you can very well help. You aren't my brother, and you can't go alone." "I was," said Hale. "Yes, sir, but not now." Hale was worried, but there was nothing else to be done. "All right, I'll let you go if you stop saying 'sir' to me. It makes me feel so old." "Certainly, sir," said the lad quite unconsciously, and when Hale smothered a laugh, He looked around to see what had amused him.